Welcome to the City of Oroville Planning Commission / Historical Advisory Committee meeting of July 25th, 2024. This is a special meeting. If anybody here who is not an applicant would like to address the commission, could you fill out a blue card and turn it into the clerk, please? Please call the roll.
Glenn Arasi.
Here.
John Zilich.
Here.
Sortow. Natalie Sheard.
Here.
I note Warren Jensen is absent, and also Terry Smith erroneously left off of the agenda, but I will call him. Terry Smith.
Here.
Thank you. Vice Chairperson Wyatt Jenkins.
Here.
Thank you.
Please stand and join me for a pledge of allegiance. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May be seated. We have two new commissioners starting tonight. Would they like to introduce themselves and say something about themselves or why they joined the commission?
My name is John Zilich. I've lived in the Oroville area since 1982. Been very proud to call this community my home. I'm definitely looking forward to working with the commission and building the community up to be even greater than it's been throughout my life anyways. Third generation operating engineers. I've built projects that are 100,000 to 100 million. So I'm hoping that my construction experience will be an assist.
My name is Sortow. The reason I wanted to be like in a planning commission because we have a lot of Asian population to come into Oroville, and I wanted to be one of that. Sometime I might be able to help them and how they wanted to build a business to Oroville. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have anybody here who wishes to speak on anything that has to do with the Planning Commission but is not on the agenda tonight?
I do not have any blue speaker cards for public comment.
Thank you. We will open the public hearing and a staff report for item 1, please.
Clicker.
All right. Good evening, commissioners, and welcome our new 2 commissioners. It's great to have you guys here tonight. Tonight, we are going to discuss a rezone and a general plan amendment for the YMCA properties that are located on Robinson Street. So 1650 and 1684 Robinson, it's about 2 blocks north of City Hall, and it is located between Pine Street and Oak Street. These 2 properties, the YMCA used to operate out of them, and they moved to the convention center a while ago. And so these properties have stood vacant, and they are now in the process of trying to sell them. However, the zoning that is currently on the property, which is PQ zoning, does not allow for a lot of development opportunities. It's very limited. And so PQ zoning public facilities is designed for government buildings, schools, nonprofits like a YMCA, and that's about it. So it's very limited. And what staff has done is a zone change initiative to change it from public to mixed use, MXD mixed use downtown, which will allow for greater development opportunities within the city. Combined with the zone change is a general plan amendment. Currently, the general planned land use designation is also public, and so we're going to change it accordingly to mixed use to allow for better development opportunities in our downtown area. There are a few recommended motions. The first is to conduct the public hearing today to adopt the CEQA notice of exemption, and then to recommend to the City Council that they approve both the rezone and the zone change and the accompanying resolution. And that is my staff report. I can answer any questions you may have, and the applicant is here today as well.
Thank you. Would you like to ask questions of staff now or applicant? Would the applicant like to speak?
I apologize. I actually have a couple of them here too.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's TJ Jensen. I represent the YMCA and both buyers of the buildings as the real estate broker. A little bit of history. I've done a lot of talking in front of city council over the last 4 to 5 years with the YMCA. So I've kind of prepared just a synopsis of how we got here. I don't know if you guys have followed the transition a little bit, but approximately 4 years ago, discussions started with the city of Oroville staff to start a formal relationship between the Y and the city of Oroville. The YMCA has been plagued with a deficit for about 15 to 20 years. So about 10 years ago, the YMCA and the Superior of YMCA California, Sacramento, they merged. So they took us on as a known deficit nonprofit. They understood that, and it was always running about 40 to 60,000 in the red. So going forward, unfortunately, with the pandemic, the YMCA was in negotiations at the Sacramento level to be absorbed by Berkeley. So in those negotiations, Berkeley stated they wanted the Oroville YMCA branch closed completely. So Sacramento, knowing that we're one of the last rural YMCAs, said merger's off, we're keeping Oroville. But unfortunately, hard decisions had to be made. The hardest decision is the pool. So unfortunately, the YMCA is not here. They're in Woodland doing similar discussions right now because rural YMCAs run at a deficit and they also have that under their umbrella. So going forward, approximately 4 years ago, discussions started with the city of Oroville staff to start a formal relationship between the Y and the city of Oroville. The city council saw the value in the YMCA and came to the table as a formal partner and provided the YMCA a new home in the Oroville Convention Center. This allowed the Y to grow and become a more viable YMCA for the Oroville community. The overhead burden of the pool, the decaying buildings, and they were very expensive, about $200,000 of private money and grant money went into them in the last 10 years to try to bring those buildings up to code, a lot of it being handicap accessibility. The overhead burden was dramatically reduced with a formal relationship of moving to the Oroville Convention Center. The partnership is growing and has become an amazing opportunity for the Y to grow into the future. Unfortunately, programs have been reduced. As you guys know, you guys are under budget constraints at the city as well. So as they're growing their membership, because of the city's relationship and low overhead, we're able to sustain a YMCA. They cannot sustain in those two buildings. Their board has decided if they cannot sell those buildings and they're forced to go back, we won't have a YMCA. There's no ands, ifs, or buts. We will get dissolved. So going forward, the YMCA vacated in 1684 and 1650, roughly 2 years ago, and started in their new location. Thanks to the development of a partnership with the city of Oroville, the Y then reached out to our commercial division at Century 21 and asked us to find buyers for their buildings. We listed the buildings for sale, and I met with city staff. Thanks, Wes, and Patrick, and thank you, Christina, for endless meetings to try to come up with a resolution that would fill those two buildings with occupants. We listed the buildings for sale, and in our findings, we found out it was designated as PQ. We advertised the buildings to be sold with the PQ zoning. We had a wide range of buyers. Several dozen people looked at the buildings, very interested in the buildings, from doctor's offices, childcare, childcare businesses, inpatient hospitalization care facilities, salons, and various other interested parties. Unfortunately, when you advertise a commercial building, there's a demand from a buyer at that moment. So a lot of them could not go through this process, which was several months to rezone. And then we kept advertising. We found two buyers who are here with us, thank goodness. And they have endured the process and been a part of the process with the city as well, which we really appreciate the city's time in helping them understand the process and staying in escrow for it. It's been lengthy, cumbersome, and a lot of education for us to learn, and we appreciate the staff from the city of Oroville. The YMCA could no longer burden the high cost, or could not burden the high cost of the rezone to the general plan and the rezoning, and staff worked diligently to identify that that neighborhood has several other businesses, including a tire shop, post office, law offices, gold manufacturing, theaters, all within a block's distance. If you went 4 blocks, you'd get several more. The historic downtown overlay helps encourage neighborhood development as we see the several offices, tire shop, post office, gold manufacturing, all within 1 block of these 2 buildings. Approving this rezone allows these buyers to purchase the buildings, improve them, and make them viable opportunities for their businesses and for future generations to occupy them. So as we rezone and make decisions now, this will, in my opinion, improve neighborhoods. You know, it's mixed use for downtown historic areas is really nice when you're walking through different neighborhoods, and it's not just houses. You've got mixed churches, you've got parks and commercial opportunities. Seeing downtown become more diverse in business, residential, and recreation is a good sign of becoming a vibrant community. Allowing the MDX use and not limited to nonprofit and government use encourages the needed diversity of which creates an even more beautiful and unique historic downtown. If you guys have any questions, that's pretty much my spiel.
Thank you. If we have questions, we'll.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Are there any blue speaker cards for this item?
Yes, there are. We will begin with Audrey Holt and follow it with Julie Miller.
Hi. So I am a neighbor. I live a couple doors down on Oak, so I received the letter. I've also been involved with the Y on and off ever since we moved here 10 years ago. So from a zoning perspective, I believe the corner building, which was the original 1930s Y building, the proposed buyer would actually be able to operate, I believe, under the current zoning, which would allow his business to still be there with the future control still left in place, that is still a public zone building. So if he were to move out, we still have the control that we can keep somebody who's going to do something community related, as I believe he wants to. As for the other building, I wasn't sure how long they would be waiting to make it into some sort of business, but it seemed like they were making it into more a storage facility. Which wouldn't add any tax revenue to Oroville. So they would be storing and then shipping for an online business, which wouldn't add any real business spaces under either use. So I don't see where the current zoning couldn't help protect those 2 buildings. We already have a lot of empty buildings downtown for downtown mixed use. We actually really have very little for children and families and things that are community-based public buildings for sorts of organizations that would fulfill the need that's already in place, which is the public zoning. So as for the history of the lots, so the corner building was actually donated by the Eman family and set up as a trust deed from the beginning. And it was set up to, I'm going to summarize because it'd take me like 5 minutes just to read it. But it was set up to be for the children of Oroville, California as a playground forever and ever. And it says that language several times. And the bindingness of this, I don't know if it's in question, but it would have to be proven in court. But it is the intent of the original deed and the lot of the building that it remain as a playground for the children of Oroville, which would be a public use. So whether or not the court would need to be involved or how that would work with that, I'm not going to speculate on. But right now the city does have some control to keep the spirit of the agreement. The Emans also built the building and paid for the building and donated it as part of the trust, as well as the second building, the middle building I'll call it, was the Oroville Junior Women's Club. They donated that property to the Oroville Y. So both of these properties have a 100-year close history in our community as public spaces. So I think that changing them, when we could find some buyers, including possibly the current buyer of the corner building, who would be willing to work within the current zoning, and that way we have future control for the next 100 years. Let me make sure I added everything.
Sorry. Thank you. Your time has expired, but thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Julie Miller, followed by Al.
Good evening, Planning Commission. I just kind of wanted to read you a little excerpt from the CEO president of the YMCA of Superior, California, Sharner Brunks. She states in her letter that the benefits of selling the two buildings with the new zoning of mixed use will help the city of Oroville fulfill the need of additional commercial buildings and meet the needs of the community. It opens up the buildings for outside use of the restrictive current zoning and fills a demand for commercial buildings. I appreciate the intent of the zone change. However, just piggybacking off of what Audrey just said, the history of the buildings is that these are to be used for the public good. And changing the zoning would really shift the focus away from that. I don't believe that she's correct in saying that we need more commercial buildings downtown. Unfortunately, we have a lot of vacant commercial buildings downtown, even a lot that are for sale currently. And so I'm just curious why we think we need to add to that inventory when we're not stewarding well the buildings that we have. We have a lot of really unsightly buildings downtown that need to be addressed. As a matter of fact, there's a burnt out apartment complex right next to the YMCA buildings that we really do need to address because it's been sitting there for over 5 years, burnt out, looking horrible. And we also have other buildings downtown that look dreadful. And so what I would like to see is an initiative set forth to steward what we have well and to help the community by opening these buildings back up in some way, shape, or form for the community, which is what the Emans intended 100 years ago. I think that Oroville could really be improved by that. And I think that there's a need for it, as a matter of fact, in our community for our children, as Frida Emans so generously gave those buildings. So that's my spiel on that, and I hope you guys will consider that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Al.
Good evening. What I want you to know, what I need to say is I don't want mixed use in there. Doesn't belong there. You have PEP housing, which is a huge monolith, and 1 block away you want to put mixed use garbage, 3 stories, and you want to take out a pool. That pool has been open in 2 years. The elderly were using that pool for exercise. You had jobs for the kids, lifeguards. That was gone, 2 years. Now you want to put in this garbage. I'm speaking for me. Don't be offended. But this really has me torqued. So the reason this pool was closed, there was some word going around that, oh, something wrong with the pool, it's damaged. No, 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 no. The plan was 2 years ago to put this up. That really has me upset. Number 2, Gavin Newsom, this piece of garbage, notice of exemption, this new thing they're coming out with, this notice of exemption. No, 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 no. Environmental review is necessary. No notice of exemptions. I don't want the city of Oroville doing the dirty work for Sacramento, okay? Anyways, sorry for my attitude, but this really, and I didn't get a notice in the mail. Everybody should have got a notice. Renters should have got a notice because there's people who want to purchase property over here. They're entitled to know what's going on. And there are people out here renovating homes. And that very area you want to put this garbage on. It's going to destroy property values if you put this up, okay? Now, once again, I have a very loving personality, don't I? Anyhow, the 2 things, I'm against it, and no notice of exemption. That's the 2 things I need you to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's the last I had for submitted speaker card, sir.
Thank you. I have a staff question. Do we know about that original deed from the property? Was it described as to the children of Oroville? Or do we know that, or?
So when I did my initial research and review of this property, I looked through what the records the city had available. this was not in there. So I will say this is the first time that this has been brought to at least my attention.
Okay. Yeah, I think Annie Bidwell did something like that with Bidwell Park. But, you know, that would have been a pretty, maybe the realtor speak on that?
Mike's not on.
Sorry. The deed on the property, and we pulled title reports, they do not have that deed restriction. There are deed restrictions for donations that were in the future. So there's several donations that were hinged on future donations of properties and trusts that stated that the local YMCA, if it became a regional YMCA, was not going to receive those donations. Unfortunately, it's now a regional YMCA, so we won't receive those donations. I don't have copies of the deed. I was contacted by an attorney this morning, and will, of course, pass this information on to title. If there is anything inside that title deed, they'd, of course, put a restriction on the prelim and let us know. But as of right now, there's nothing on either building that ties that to the sale.
The newer deed, you're looking at newer deeds, so
Yeah,
not,
so
not a deed
they've
from
gone back to the
1900s.
30s.
Yeah.
So nothing prior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But since then, every owner probably has a new deed that might not
Yeah,
describe
though
the same as
it shows the historical, but it doesn't show that. So, but the attorney that talked to me this morning, it was like microfished, and she said she was having a very difficult time reading it, and it just said Friends of Oroville, or for the children of Oroville. But yeah, we're going to be doing the further research with title, just so there's accurate title insurance on the property. But as of right now, no.
And with your research with the YMCA, do you know if the YMCA staying open in town is contingent upon the sale?
Yes, absolutely. So Shar and I spoke with Sharna this afternoon. Unfortunately, the burden, we have a lot of vandalism at the buildings right now. They've endured those vandalism costs. They have to rid themselves of these two buildings. They've offered, I did put it out for a nonprofit for almost a year. So it's been marketed heavily for a year.
And the current title is to the YMCA?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions from?
Well, yeah. Am I on?
She gets us.
If there is a deed restriction, I mean, so it's for the children of Oroville, but whose responsibility is that to make sure or maintains it? Is it supposed to be dedicated to the city once the YMCA is not there?
That's what I've expressed. I don't have a copy of that deed restriction. Prior to going on the market, we heard of the deed restriction, and in our findings, the only thing we found were the restrictions tied to donations. And those were really heavily detailed. So there were several properties on Fifth Avenue that were going to be donated to the Y. And so those showed up in association with our title research, but not the deed restriction. So there's been, of course, I've had it listed for a year and been in works on it for about 18 months. I've had several conversations from people about that, but I don't actually have any produced deed restriction.
So do you know when, and I forget who they said donated this property or
The Eamon Family Home Trust actually is a continuous funder for the YMCA. So annually, they receive a donation from the Eamon Family Trust. There's a separate advisory board that functions separate of the Y, and they designate the funding. Potentially, and I don't know the history of when the homes were built or when those two buildings were built and how they were deeded. The Eamon home was most likely part of that process back in the day. But they still contribute annually through, I think there's $100,000 or $200,000 stock, and the YMCA receives the interest from that annually. And it's based on the Y in Oroville staying open. So if the Y in Oroville is not open, it doesn't transfer to Sacramento. Then the Eamon Family Trust and the trustees manage that money. So that money would not go if the Y closed. That money stays with the Eamon Family Home, and they would designate it separately to another entity.
So who manages it right now?
I don't sit on the Y board anymore. It's been years. So the last time I worked with them, it was like Kevin Zeitler, Jim Mall. Dennis Divers sat on it over the years. So different, and they elect their own annually. They elect it, and they do.
It's a building now.
That's the YMCA. The YMCA owns and maintains the building. The trust just donates an annual contribution from the Eman family home. Does that make sense? So the Eman Family Trust makes an annual donation to the local Oroville YMCA. And that local board is usually advisors set forth by that
Have you talked to
trust.
the board?
I don't know. That trust is separate. They have their own fund. It's basically a nonprofit that makes a donation annually. So they have been advised of the sale prior to even me coming on board. And it's not contingent with that trust. That trust is completely separate of the YMCA. So they're a governing body. They can choose to donate money annually or not. Every year they donate to the Oroville Y. And even since our move 2 years ago, they continue to make that donation. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question. Is it true what Audrey said, that the Krishna Cultural Center would be in compliance with the PQ zoning?
That is an understanding that we had with the applicant, that the use would allow that. However, when we originally spoke and they were starting the sale of the process of the sale, it wasn't a solidified development plan. And so there's potential that it would have worked with the PQ zoning when they reach that final stage, but there's also just as likely a chance that it'll work with the mixed use zoning. And since the properties are currently owned together, we thought it would just be best to do them both as mixed use. And that way, if the Krishna Cultural Center decided to change some of their plans, we wouldn't have to go through this process with you guys again.
But the Krishna Cultural Center is pretty much the vision of a community center, not children, but it is community. Okay.
That is my understanding, but that applicant is actually here today as well, and I would defer to him on that.
Yeah. Do we want the applicants to talk about what they want to do with the buildings? No? Okay.
That is your prerogative.
That's the answer.
First, you have to resolve the building restriction on title.
Warren's call.
I want to clarify something.
Real quick, because we don't usually do
Yeah,
speakers.
everything I have is from the clerk recorder's office and their historical documents computers. I have all the receipts and I can let y'all make as many copies. I have all the copies of the deeds, and it is a deed that states for the children, like it's the actual deed.
It'd be
The deed-
fantastic if you
Sure.
could give it to staff so they could do
Because the
that.
deed, as I found and as has been recorded, has not been changed
Okay.
in the entire time.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks.
Please.
Regarding the letter we wrote, first of all, we thought we are writing that letter to one person. If we knew you are going to post it on and for public, we would have not include personal matters. One of those personal matters is my mom. I'm Persian. We left the country after the revolution. My youngest brother ended up in Sweden. The middle one in Canada with my parents, and I am here for last 4 years. So my mom, my dad passed away, but my mom is traveled in between their 3 kids. And when he's here, when she's here, she stays with my aunt in Southern California. But her health benefit is in Canada because she's a Canadian citizen. So now she's 82, and I have to keep taking her back and for a different reason. So our goal is to open a store. And we are hoping we don't have to do online. We are tired of taking a picture, describing, packing. But we said if we don't have enough business, that's something we have done in the past. We can do that on the side. But if we have enough business, we will be open at least 5 days a week, maybe 6. But right now, because she's in an age, I hope she lives 120 years, but I don't think she has a lot life left. And she has a lot of health condition. So that's why I mentioned, and that lady said, we are not going to generate enough taxes. So I hope we have business we can, but if we don't, we can force people to come to our store to buy things. We can just do online. And for another information is, I have done online business, which we had license for that, and same things as when we pay, for example, on eBay. eBay knows exactly what city we are in. They collect the tax and they pay it. So there is no such a things getting away with the online not paying taxes. They take it from us regardless. Many years ago, it wasn't the case, but they changed the law. Now even online in USA, they have to collect the tax. So whether we do online or whether we do in-person sales, we have to pay tax. We have to collect sales tax and pay tax. So that's basically, and I can't think of anything else except we are people who doesn't bother anyone. And if you are there, we have no even kids or pets, and we don't know anyone in this area to have parties or anything. And if we have a store, if they come to our store, they are welcome. If they don't, we have to focus on online to generate some income, basically. That's
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think anybody is against that. I think it's just that nobody wants a public place going private if it doesn't need to.
Right. That I don't know. I'm just responding to
Yeah.
First Lady who said we are not going to be.
I don't think anybody's against your
Right,
business,
right.
but thank you for speaking, though.
So I want to be really clear about the potential buyers for this building. There are entities in which that can buy that facility that are inside the quasi-public usage that may not best serve that location. So in advertising, it has been advertised for a year. Dozens of people have looked at it. All of them were commercial designations. Not one nonprofit, except one specifically, would go in there other than the Kirshner Foundation. The reason he's asking for the MDX is because the fee was so large. So it's not to the buyers, it's in the seller's advantage to get these rezoned to MDX so they can, one, get them out of their inventory and they're no longer being vandalized. And two, it allows them to broaden their buyer's perspective. So with it being limited to government and quasi-government nonprofits, you're limiting to that. In regards to the deed restriction, I'll pull title and have them look at that. It would not be able to go through and process the sale if there is an actual deed restriction. So that is governed. We're protected on that side. So the rezoned MDX just allows the sale of the buildings if this commission sees that being the highest and best use. I feel it's the highest and best use. Obviously, staff is presenting it as highest and best use to be transferred to MDX. So, and the neighbor is a tire shop too. So MDX and the one behind him is a lawyer, and it's mixed use right there. So it would be beneficial. Thank you.
Thanks. Any more questions from the commission?
Well, the issue I have is if there is a deed restriction and how valid it is, right? I mean, if it's to be used as a public, quasi-public, we really can't change the zoning of it. And then, so say we change the zoning of it, and then it's, deed restriction says it has to be.
You turned off.
Well, the sale wouldn't go through if the deed restriction was in place. The sale would not be able to happen.
I'm just going to stand up here, sorry. So the only thing that I would say is if there's a motion that, say if there's an entertainment from this commission to move forward with a transfer to the MDX, I don't know if a motion could be contingent on me verifying with title. They can do research, they can pull archives, which they pulled archives from the county because that's what they do. I'll have them evaluate that data to see if it's valid. They may have already evaluated that and found it not to be valid. They just didn't include it in my supplemental packet. So that, I mean, we have a clean title report ready to sale, but it designates nonprofit. So
Did you use Bidwell?
Mid-Valley,
Mid-Valley.
yeah. Bidwell's out of business in Orville, right?
Was that sorry?
Bidwell's out of business, I believe.
Well, they still have
Old
it.
Republic
Well,
or-
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
they have the oldest title
archives.
plant, right?
Yeah, and Mid-Valley
So
does
they
go
might
to
have
them.
it
I will definitely call them tomorrow and find
Yeah.
out.
They
Yeah.
might be able to,
Dig
I mean, I found something back from 1912.
the archives
with
in the
them.
basement.
With Trevor,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I will do that, because, I mean, of course, we can't close escrow without clear title, so
Yeah.
if there is a deed restriction, and I don't know the formality, maybe you can help me with this, if the commission approves now, does it still have to be approved by the city council? So I can get you clarity in between.
Yes, so tonight is just a motion to recommend either approval or denial, and then it goes to city council, and it'll have two readings
Okay.
at city council. So a decision tonight is just to move forward. It is not to actually approve the rezone.
I see,
It's just an all cash or a finance deal?
all cash.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions?
Thanks. If there's no other questions, we're open to a motion.
Are we discussing?
Well, I mean,
Amongst ourselves?
yeah, we could talk amongst ourselves or,
Okay.
questions to staff or commissioners or.
I mean, I agree, the best use was the YMCA there. I loved it more than anything. I love that building being the YMCA. That is absolutely, without a doubt, the best use. But the YMCA couldn't stay. They moved. They need money. It's hard for me to deny a building that they need the assets from to keep the YMCA in Oroville, which I think is super important, especially, we're losing the Feather River Parks District Activity Center. I just feel like I really don't want to lose the Y. So given the fact that these buildings have been empty, I would love to see a more inviting zoning. I do like mixed use. I do think it's wonderful. I love that in our downtown. I do want to see it be a facility that is for families and children. That would be wonderful, but I don't have any control over that. And there haven't been a lot of people that have come forward, I don't think, and offered to do that and come with money and been able to do it. So personally, for me, I'm for the rezone because I believe it will be safer for the neighborhood. It brings life and people and businesses, all of which we need in downtown.
Well, I mean, my concern is just a legal one. That's my only concern is this, we don't have enough info. I mean, yeah, the sale may or may not, I mean, it's an all cash sale, so they can do what they want to do. They can take it subject to, or they can do whatever they want, correct, TJ?
So at this time, they have made that a contingency. This is a contingency of the sale.
Of the
So,
sale?
Yeah.
Is
so
the
they
zoning.
won't- This is the rezone. For the purpose of the 1650 is a contingency of the sale. And 1684 is not a contingency, but because they are bringing a new cultural center to Oroville, there's a large amount of capital that goes into that, right? So it's going to be open to the public. It's a foundation in which is open to the public. A meditation center, bookstore. They have quite a bit, I'm sure on their website you can see. But the realities of that, if it's not accepted into the community, they need to be able to do exactly what the YMCA is doing and sell the building.
Right.
And then if they're exposed to the long duration of being on the market 2 to 3 years with an empty building, they're back at your doorstep. So the MDX is appropriate. And on the legal perspective, like I said, we will have that clarified for council because it's going to come up then too, so.
Yeah, I mean, even if it is supposed to be designated for this public, I mean, who's responsible for it? Who's doing it? Are they funding it? Who's maintaining it? Is it dedicated to another? I mean, does another nonprofit have to come in and do all that? I mean,
Right.
I don't know the answers to
The
those questions.
originally the YMCA offered it to the city of Oroville. The city of Oroville, of course, doesn't want it. So, I mean, it's an expensive building to maintain. I wrote 2 grants for it in 10 years for 150 and then another one for 75. I love those buildings. They are dear to me. But most importantly, and I've pleaded with city council, we lost the community block grant this year for $550,000. So the Y lost that for 2 years of funding. We cannot provide any summer camps. This is imperative. The YMCA lost $550,000 in capital for 2 years of operation. They've not lost it in over 10 years. This is the first time they lost it. So, and that along with the Axiom lost their funding this year. So, and unfortunately, that's where we're at, and we don't want to lose the Y. It's,
Right.
and that's the only thing Sharna expressed to me. The board is dedicated to the YMCA in Oroville. And I'm not joking. I was sitting on the Y board when they were merging with Berkeley. We were near bankruptcy because of COVID, and they pulled because they wanted the Y in Oroville. Berkeley, they looked right at us. He said, "You're too rural, you're too expensive, we can't absorb you." But Sacramento stayed. So I will do everything in my power to keep the Y open, whether the buildings sell or not. But they are costing the Y money now. So we do have to have a resolution, and the most appropriate resolution is to zone it to MDX to allow us the opportunity. If these buyers walk from the table, it allows me the opportunity to find another buyer. That's my plea. Thanks.
My other question is, and Audrey might know this, but is the deed restriction for the children, or is the deed restriction that you're reading to keep it public, quasi-public?
The deed as stated requires that the YMCA keep it, so it requires the YMCA to be who keeps it.
Okay.
And my understanding of the money set up from the trust was also money that was throughout the years only for the YMCA. The money isn't split among various EMA
Right.
organizations. So they were giving money directly because of how they did the trust deed when they set up the land and how they did the grant deed when they built the buildings.
So that's a tough one for me. They were given the buildings and the property, the YMCA, and they couldn't keep it. So if they can't keep it, I can't see, I don't know how to force that issue. They weren't able to keep it. They have a new building. They desperately need the money. And and you can also have a children's center with mixed use. That's the thing. You're not limited. You can do anything. You can have a preschool. So I still.
I mean, I think if there's that restriction on it, I think it would revert to the original owner if.
Right.
Yeah.
And that original owner doesn't own property, and the trust states that they don't own property, right? So the Eman Trust no longer owns property. That was the whole designation of getting.
It would revert to their heirs, though. It would
No, it literally, in the trust that they have for the financial, they don't own property. So the financial trust that is a funding source for the YMCA, not for the buildings, but for the YMCA, a funding source, clearly states that they don't own property. And I'll provide Sharna to send staff a letter, and she can put and speak with them and the trust committee as well. I just don't know who those trustees are anymore. It's been too long for me. The other thing I wanted to answer in regards to children, I had 3 full daycares ready to purchase those buildings, ready
And
to
it
go.
can't, quasi-public can't have a daycare?
And specifically told me we do not have the time to wait. We have to go find another facility.
Oh.
And they did. They did. They didn't find them in Oroville, unfortunately. And 1650 was designated by the state of California as a daycare. It's been empty for too long now. It has to all be redone. So it can't be just a daycare now because it's been empty for 2 years. So me marketing the properties for sale as nonprofit quasi-government has done nothing except find 2 really good buyers that had time to endure the process. So that's hopefully helps.
Yeah.
Thank you. Did you wish to speak?
So, first night here, I was hoping that I was going to be able to skate through it without having any serious discussions, but it looks like I haven't. I have 2 things. First of all, of course, if the original deed had some language in it, it concerns me as well of what we might be stepping on and stepping into by just setting a precedence to ignore it. And the second thing is I have a lot of history with that building. I grew up as a kid there. I used to go in there and push a little button and play the free games there all the time. However, if the YMCA staying in Oroville is contingent upon selling the buildings or not, and if we end up losing the YMCA, then the buildings are just going to remain vacant. Maybe they'll be taken over by the mother corporation, go back to the trust, whatever's going to happen, but we're still going to have 2 empty buildings, one of them with a pool in the middle of our town. This, at least, we have a buyer, and they'll make use of the buildings. Because, like I said, if the YMCA leaves, then the buildings are vacant anyways. So it's kind of like our hands are tied at the moment.
Open for a motion. This isn't, the city council still has to review this also, so.
I mean, how do we do, if that deed restriction does show up, what do we do in that situation?
My expectation is that you would make the rezone recommendation contingent on there not being a deed restriction that would preclude the sale.
With that,
Yeah.
all right.
I'm still confused though, because the deed restriction is not about the zoning. So that's what's confusing me.
It's the use, which is the zoning.
But you could still have children there with mixed use. It can still go to the children. I mean, I know it wouldn't, but it's not, the deed restriction is not saying this has to say PQ.
We have one opinion about what the deed restriction says, but we have not heard from the title company, is
Okay.
my understanding. So
Okay.
that would be a definitive.
Okay, that would be the truth, or
Yeah.
just the, okay, how it would be interpreted.
I mean, I guess we could say, marketable title, TJ? Yeah, I mean, would that work? You can add that to the,
Goodness, sorry, guys.
Help her out.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Sorry about that. So yeah, I can get, when TJ runs that, I can get it from him and I can add that to what goes to city council for their review. And if it actually has restrictions on it relating to land use, that would be a conversation we have to have. Zoning allows certain types of land use, but as you know, it was hit on, if something says this is designed for children, that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with zoning. There's a lot of different land uses in a lot of different zones
Yeah.
that could fulfill that requirement without limiting it to PQ zoning.
okay.
Super general question. So if it is zoned downtown mixed use, does that mean it can't be public?
No, it doesn't, right? It's the most liberal
I just wanted to clarify. It could still
Use.
be it could
Park.
still be a YMCA.
a park,
downtown mixed
right?
use.
Right, yep. That's correct.
It could be just about anything with mixed
Anything.
use zoning.
Yeah.
Motion?
Well, I can make a motion, but do we need to add in this other?
Yeah, you need to add in, that has to be marketable title, right?
Okay.
So the recommendation would be
To recommend this to city council that we change to mixed use contingent upon this having a marketable title.
Would that work for you? Yes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Please open voting.
Oh. Mine's not showing up.
She's
Oh,
absent.
because you have to push it.
It does, why does it say that? Interesting. Here, let me help you.
Who's
do
ready?
it?
Yeah, I think he knows.
Did you push it? Oh, he's
Do you like
thinking.
yes or no? What was your vote?
Glenn, you're,
To me?
you got a weird,
Ah,
Perfect.
there you go.
Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Thank you.
So then this would be scheduled to go to the city council on the 20th of August, is that correct?
I'm so sorry.
The next available date for the city council to hear this would be the 20th of August.
Correct.
So it has to be
Yes.
noticed.
And there'll be a public hearing there, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Wait till she comes back in for the. Who's this? I don't know who's reporting the second one. She's outside talking. Wait a minute. For what?
It's
Before we start
Connor.
item two.
Why? Was
The Connor?
Connor's on it. He can present the next
Okay.
item if you're ready.
Okay, if you're there, Connor, we will do item 2.
Awesome. I am here, yes. Okay, so second item here is consideration of zoning code amendment ZC 24-04. Some revisions to our sign regulations of the Oroville Municipal Code. And we'll just go through this presentation and talk about this a little bit amongst us. So some of the history sequence, especially for our newer planning commissioners, the sign code update was started by staff in 2016. Economic changes, things like that. The update fell by the wayside. New staff came along. We started in 2020. I had multiple planning commission workshops through that year. And at that time, some key changes really focused on maintenance provisions, square footages, height requirements, design requirements, and some downtown historic overlay provisions. And that sign code update was adopted by the City Council in 2021. So we're here now kind of looking at this again. So overarching purpose of the sign code is safeguard public health, safety, welfare, enhance the aesthetic character of development in the city by regulating and controlling the design, number, area, height, quality of materials, construction, illumination, et cetera, et cetera. So it's an overarching thing. Signs are a very prevalent and very visible product. So let's visualize it. You can see here, if any of you have been to Anaheim or Disneyland, you can see on the left side, that's what it used to look like. And on the right side is what it looks like now. So it shows you the visual weight that signage carries. Left side, you know, each individual parcel has many, many signs, many different types of signs. And this image here shows you freestanding signs, monument signs, regulatory signs, all these different things. The right side is a really modernized, tamed down version of that. But we'll go through some definitions that you'll probably hear a lot today. So freestanding signs are a detached sign that's elevated above the ground by one or more poles, braces, or structures. You'll see the example of the Walmart sign there. A pole sign is a single pole or similar structure, so like the Starbucks sign at the old Ron's Drive-In. And then the freeway-oriented sign is any sign for a freeway-oriented business designed to be visible from the freeway, which it depends on, like that Feather River Crossing signs at the old Walmart. So under our current regulations, and this is dealing with freestanding signage, since this is really the catalyst for why we're talking about this redo with the sign code, is the height requirements and square footage. We set a requirement for freestanding signs, and we lump in freeway-oriented freestanding signs within that same regulation, but they're very small, they're very limited in height. They don't really orient themselves to having a larger sign for higher speed traffic along the freeway. So current regulations, depending on your zoning district, you can have a freestanding sign up to 8 feet in height. If your property abuts State Route 162, your sign can go up to 40 feet. And if your property is within a quarter mile of State Route 70, you could go up to 85 feet. So 85 feet, that's the tallest that we've approved with the McDonald's sign, the Maverick sign, Starbucks, Panda Express, and then soon to be on the north side of Oroville, the Chevron and Starbucks sign at Grand and 3rd. Square footage is limited to a maximum of 100 square feet. That depends on the length of your street frontage. So it ranges from 50 square feet, 75 square feet, up to 100 square feet. However, it is contingent along that the total overall area for all signs of the property is not exceeded. So you kind of got to do some math, calculate how much is the maximum square footage you're allowed, what do each individual sign allow, do some math, minus that, figure it out. Design requirements, they're required to be cladded or skirted, and landscaping is required to be provided at the base of the sign. So what does a quarter mile look like? This is under the current regulations. These crude squares, rectangles that I drew, really go from the edge of State Route 70, a quarter of a mile into the city. So you can see it kind of butts up right to the edge of that Starbucks Panda Express property on Oro Dam, goes all the way up into the downtown area and back down. On the north side of town at Grand to Nelson, it goes all the way in past 2nd Street up to the Butte County Fire Station. And then south end of town here, from Georgia Pacific all the way up to the old Walmart. It really butts in all the way over to Walmart. This is what a quarter mile looks like at the off-ramp. So probably a little small for you guys to see, but generally the same thing. It encompasses mostly where you see those tall signs now. So at our off-ramps, you'll see at Oro Dam and 70, the Windy sign, AM, PM, Feather River Crossings. At the Montgomery off-ramp, you'll see the 76, Motel 6, Super 8. Those signs are about 60 feet tall. At the Grand and Nelson off-ramps, we don't see too many signs that are super tall there. The Home Depot is the tallest sign in that area as of right now, which is at 40 feet. And then there are no signs at the Garden off-ramp at the very north end. So real short, what's changing? It kind of falls into three categories: clarifications, modified regulations, and new regulations. So for clarifications, we are changing the definition of what freeway-oriented means. It's kind of subjective right now how it talks about freeway on which the business depends on. You and I could debate about, well, your business doesn't depend on 70, but yours does. So we're changing that to just say, if your business is facing State Route 70 or other freeway as designated by the city's general plan, it's freeway oriented. Differentiating between lot and building frontage. So the freestanding sign regulations talk about shall not be placed on any frontage with the width of less than 75 feet. We're clarifying that means your lot frontage, not your building. Clarifying that you cannot use a banner as a permanent sign. A banner is meant to be temporary, advertising special events and things like that. So if a business wanted to come in, say worst case scenario, McDonald's removed all their signs and just wanted to use banners, they cannot use those banners permanently. And then adding proper referencing for downtown sign regulations. So there was some lack of proper code referencing. We're modifying the regulations for the placement of monument and freestanding signs on a frontage. So just clarifying how far away they have to be from each other, what that looks like, setting a maximum square footage for monument and wall signs, the applicability of the maximum total area of wall signs. Currently, that applies to all signs. So like in the case of the Starbucks at 3rd and Grand, they had a maximum square footage for all signs on the property at, let's say 300 square feet. Their freestanding sign that they were proposing was at about 250. So it took up basically all of the allowed signage. So clarifying that you're really intending to have a larger sign with a freeway-oriented freestanding sign, you shouldn't have that take away from your wall signage and things like that. And then some new regulations really defining what freeway-oriented signs are, setting those regulations in there. The city has sign programs. So sign programs are comprehensive plans for individual development that regulates the look, the style. It implements the zoning code in a more focused fashion. So requiring those in certain scenarios where it may be beneficial, and then instead of using the variance procedure to request deviations from code, having them go through a sign program. So that barrier is a little bit less. And then really just leave this up for discussion and some questions. You should see, I believe printed out for you, a colored version with red line and blue line. The blue line are some changes that we've made since the agenda packet was published. They're just some more clarifications, typo fixes, things like that. But really just looking for your recommendation to council or some direction from Planning Commission. Do you like where this went? Is there a number you want to see? Currently, we set 85 feet as the maximum. Are you open to having higher? Just things like that. So just turn it over to you guys for some discussion.
I have a question about the cladding, because I know we took that out, correct, Connor? The cladding requirement for the pole signs? I think
Yes, so cladding requirements for freestanding signs have been removed. And then it's added in for freeway-oriented signs only if you're a multi-tenant. So if you have, I believe, 4 or more or something like that. So if you're an individual tenant, you don't have to put cladding on it.
But it was in our current code, and we were able to waive it for people who didn't want to do it.
Correct, yeah, through that variance procedure. So in the current code, all freestanding signs needed that cladding. Now we're removing it for freestanding signs and only requiring it for freeway-oriented with 4 or more tenants.
I guess I just want to have us consider. I really think the cladding looks a lot better, and I understand if people don't want to do it, they can always just ask and it will probably be waived. But I think the standard is much nicer than just really tall pole signs everywhere. How much is it for them to ask for a variance? Is that a
So
standard fee?
we're going to get away from the variance. So
So it's just you go to have the program.
the sign program, yes.
The sign
So the sign program would cover all of the signage on the property. So in this case, we'll use the freestanding freeway oriented one with the cladding requirement. Say someone came in and they didn't want to do that cladding, they would go through that sign program and request that deviation from you guys.
And is that expensive to go through the sign program?
It's the same price as a use permit. So the use permit fees, Wes, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if they went up. Are they 6,000, 3,000?
I think it's 4,100, is that correct?
That's too much money, so I don't want to
That's too
force
much
anyone
money.
to do that. But I love the cladding.
3,500.
I guess sign builders would put cladding on if they wanted to, so. There was something else in here with the landscaping. We were removing that requirement to landscape if they were facing State Route 70, I think. They only had to landscape the front. I felt like before when we had Tractor Supply here, and I think another applicant, what was cool is that nobody could really see because of the trees from State Route 70, they couldn't see that sign. It was basically hidden. I kind of think that if it's really visible on State Route 70, there should be a minimum landscape requirement so that when you're driving down State Route 70, it does look as though things are finished and inviting.
Yeah, so we've removed the landscape requirement if it's installed at the rear of the property, and that's primarily used for non-customer access. So if it's at the back end of the property, you don't have to put full, shrubs and everything like that. It does state that they have to provide decorative rock, gravel, bark, or low maintenance landscaping techniques. So it can't just be barren dirt and land.
Okay, good.
Connor, we had some discussions earlier today about single tenant, multiple tenant, and distance from Highway 70. And you have on E2 there, under freeway-oriented freestanding signs, different heights. And then earlier you have one that's 25 feet. So can you kind of go through that and the circumstances under which these various heights would apply?
Yes. So there's a lot of different heights, different numbers, different things all over the place. So set by code, if I were to be looking at those tables that you see in 17.20.120 requirements for commercial and mixed use zones, it sets those standards in there. And in it, we'll start with freestanding signs. Freestanding signs are set at a maximum height of 12 feet. So by right, with just building permits, you can get a sign that's 12 feet tall anywhere in those zoning districts. There's a note number 5 for an exception that refers you to the code section of, let me pull up the number here, 17.20.070, which is where Wes is talking about D and E. So D here, D4, you can go up to 25 feet if your property abuts State Route 162. So the starting number is going to be 12 feet. If you abut 162, you can go up to 25 feet. If you are proposing a freeway-oriented sign, which would be for a property that abuts State Route 70 or is separated by a roadway or parcel from State Route 70, it can go up as a single tenant or a multi-tenant with just a building permit at a height of 40 feet. If they wish
and that
to...
is the west side of Feather River Boulevard primarily, is that correct?
Let me pull up those maps again. I think that'll be helpful too for this discussion.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure the commission,
okay. We're
commission
good.
is aware of these things.
It's tricky.
It is. It's very tricky. Signs are complicated. Oak trees are complicated. Basically, anything I touch gets complicated. But so with this, in this area here, this is a quarter mile. If you are abutting State Route 70 on this side of Feather River Boulevard, you can have a sign at 40 feet tall with just a sign permit, which is a building permit. If you're multiple tenants, so in the case of, let's say, this little center right here, the Goodwill and the old Family Dollar, if these individuals were to propose a multiple tenant sign, like the Feather River Crossings, they can go up to 60 feet plus 5 additional feet per tenant, up to a maximum of 85 feet. So if Goodwill and Family Dollar wanted a sign, they can go 60 feet. They wanted to add Applebee's, it could go to 65 feet. If they wanted to add the old grocery store in there, it could go up to 70 feet. And if they wanted to add the old Tractor Supply, it could go up to 75, so on and so forth. The more tenants they add, the higher they can go. If we look at this map right here with the circles, if any property falls within that quarter mile circle radius of State Route 70 off-ramp, they by automatically are eligible to go up to 85 feet. That is with the use permit to the Planning Commission for your review and consideration. So this circle here roughly corresponds to where all of the existing tall and super tall signs fall within the city. So you have Wendy's, you have Feather River Crossings, you have McDonald's, you have Arco, Maverick, and Starbucks right on the edge. You have Motel 6, Super 8, and the 76 gas station right here. And then on the northern end of the city, you have the soon-to-be Starbucks and Chevron sign at 70 feet, I believe it is. So within this area, if an individual were to develop, we'll use the Gateway site. The Gateway site were to develop as a shopping center, they can have a sign up to 85 feet tall with the use permit to the Planning Commission. That follows the general procedure that all of our signs that have come to you have followed. We're not changing that. In this kind of no man's land in the middle between these two circles is where that 40 feet and 60 feet comes in. Now, 40 feet and 60 feet, that's a decision of the Planning Commission. If you wish to see that number change to something higher, so be it. We've had this discussion with Tractor Supply. The vegetation will continue to grow. Do we, as a city and as the commission, want to allow signs to grow as the vegetation grows? That is something that you need to keep in mind and consider. The 40 feet for single tenants and multi-tenants, you're more than welcome to increase that up to 60 feet and increase the multiple tenants up to 85 feet. This was just kind of a starting ground for a discussion of how do we prevent the proliferation of signs that end up looking like this. Does that clear it up a little bit, I hope?
I have a question. So on that two previous slides, you have the quarter mile, I guess. It shows, that sign right there. So how does that differ from the circles? The circles.
Yeah. So this right now, these rectangles are what our current regulations have. So if I own a property anywhere in this boundary, I can have a sign up to 85 feet tall. Okay. So if I was all the way over here at the Butte County Clerk Recorder's office, I can have a sign up to 85 feet tall. If I was on the other side of Feather River Boulevard, I can have a sign up to 85 feet tall, and same thing on the southern end of the industrial area. If I was all the way past, I think that's 7th, I can have a sign up to 85 feet tall. That really pushes that boundary of how many tall signs you could see.
Right.
This circle one reduces those locations of the 85-foot tall signs into the areas of those circles, into the key interchange off-ramps, because that's where business services tend to be clustered.
Okay, so in that example there, you have, so for example, the Goodwill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the Better Buy Discount Grocery, formerly Family Dollar.
Yep.
And Tractor Supply seem to be in the no man's land. So and so does Applebee's. So if you wanted, so if you're in that center, you don't fall in that your parcel doesn't fall within that circle, but it's within that rectangle. You understand what I'm asking?
So in
Yes, let me pull up my maps here.
But how tall is Applebee's sign right now?
well, in that
So
area,
if you look, so you see, okay, so the Goodwill and the Better Buy Discount is in that outer ring, but that pad that used to be that old discount grocer, that's just a pad, and then the Tractor Supply, those pads out front, and the other horizontal, those row uses over there, and Applebee's don't fall within that zone or that yeah. So
it's in height. If you have a single sign, it's whatever there is, 40 feet. If you
40
co-locate
feet.
with another, 60 feet?
Correct. If you co-locate with one other tenant, you could go up to 60 feet.
If you co-locate with two other tenants, you can go up a little bit higher. If you co-locate with another one, you can go up higher, and then till you get
right,
to the
but does the
maximum
sign have to
85
be
feet.
located within those circles, or
It
what
would
about
be-
the old Tractor Supply, right? I mean,
It could be anywhere on that site that serves all the businesses together. They
The
would
circle
So in this case,
can go 85, I think.
yeah, so if you're in this circle, you automatically are eligible
I'm
up
just
to a
saying, why do
maximum.
we have the
55.
circles? Why can't we?
To go
If-
85.
If I may,
Yeah.
if I could. I worked at the Bay Area for 16 years, and I know what they're trying to do here. What it is as you drive down 680 or any of the freeways down there, you look out, and it used to be when I first started working down there, and this is years ago, you could see the hills. And you could see everything through. You could see the towns, you could see the communities, you could see everything. Well, then they started putting up signs, and the taller the signs got, you couldn't see anything besides the signs anymore. So I think the basis of this is to incentivize, like Applebee's would be heavily incentivized to work with the Goodwill to combine on one sign that would be 85 feet tall. Instead of having their own separate sign, it would be way better for them to have it combined into one. So the incentive here is to, instead of everybody having their individual sign, to try to get everybody to kind of group together, I think.
No, and that makes perfect sense, but sometimes you have building owners who don't want to play fair with everybody.
Oh, yeah,
And
100%.
and that's just the way it is, so.
So this restricts the people that don't want to play fair to a smaller sign. So there's an incentive for people to want to play fair, so to speak, and join with some other people to get the tallest sign that they can have. But then it reduces the number of signs that you see as you're going down. So if you look at that site right there, if everyone had their own pole sign at 40 feet or whatever it is, then you've got a sign every I think it's 50 feet is the minimum distance between. Is that right, Connor?
I think so.
75.
75 feet between each one. So even still with 75 feet, that's not terribly far apart. So that's a lot of signs. So this just, if they each have their own, it's a little bit shorter. If they all want to have a taller sign with greater visibility, share the costs, then they all get together. In here, it would require them to enter into an agreement with each other that they would submit to the city, and then they would put the sign where they want, and then that's the sign for that location.
I mean, because
Yeah, so-
as it is right now on that site, no one else has a sign, only Applebee's has a sign, right?
Yes, and so with this area here, these are two different shopping centers. They're two different shopping centers, and in all honesty, they should act as shopping centers. Instead, you've had individuals over time piecemeal it, piecemeal projects, do their own thing, as you mentioned, Glenn. And so really the intent was, if you want to have individual signs along this back way facing 70, sure, go for it, but you're limited to 40 feet. You go want to play nice and talk with your neighbors, you could go ahead and go higher. Same thing down here with the most recent discussions of Tractor Supply. They had no interest in talking to Taco Bell to combine their signs. if they were interested in combining their signs, they were automatically eligible to go up to 60 feet without, having to come for this variance hearings and things like that. They just got to get that use permit, sign that agreement that we're going to play nice, we're going to go for 60 feet. The 40 feet works in some instances. It is not as visually impactful as you're driving down because we are balancing that general plan policy of maintain views of Table Mountain and protect the scenic character of Oroville. We found that to be implemented, I found that to be able to be implemented of, okay, a single sign should be shorter than a multiple tenant sign.
Right.
Can I just quickly interject? So I saw John with his hand up for a little bit earlier. There's a button on there that raises a hand on the screen, and then the chair can see that button, and then he can call on you in the order.
It was there, but I noticed nobody else was using it, so I'm, like I said, first time. So I don't know what the hierarchy is here, I don't know how to do it.
Jump in when you get a chance. Like right now, I don't see that screen at all, so I wouldn't even know.
I do have two quick ones that we were talking about before. First of all, anybody with a current sign that's in position, would any of these regulations are they grandfathered in, or are they going to be forced to update their current sign?
They'd be grandfathered in.
They would be grandfathered,
Yep.
okay. And then the second thing is, what was like I said, first time here, what was the 85-foot rule? Where did that come from? Because since the highway is already elevated, 20, 25 feet roughly, that means technically they're 60 feet above traffic level?
It wasn't that high before, but we had people kept wanting variances, and then the commission was allowing those variances. So one of the reasons that Connor actually took this on himself, he wanted to update the sign code so that we wouldn't have to keep going to variances, and business owners wouldn't have to keep applying for variances to go with their signs. So the ordinance is written to sort of reflect more the historical allowances of signs.
I believe McDonald's went that height, and then
Yeah, so
Starbucks and Panda Express popped up, and they wanted to go the same height since they were close. And then Mavericks being there wanted to go to that height also. So.
Oh yeah, what's good for the neighbors is good for me. Yep, I completely get
so
that.
historically, the city allowed a maximum height of 60 feet for signs. I will say, as of right now, Oroville allows the tallest signs out of any community in Butte County at 85 feet. And that was set as a variance in, I believe, 2012 for McDonald's. They came in, they did a balloon test that said, they need to see our sign. Well, McDonald's did it. So the neighbor said, I want one too, so I'm going to do that. And then the other one said, I want to do it. So based on historical precedents, the Planning Commission has set 85 feet as the maximum. Maverick came in 2020 with a request for a 100-foot tall sign. Planning Commission only approved at 85 feet based on that historical precedence.
That makes perfect sense on the 85 feet because, like I said, I come from very developed areas in my construction. So I love the circle idea. I really do, because that will allow everyone to see our town and see past our town and be able to still see Table Mountain. The circle idea, I think, is great over the original rectangles.
And this passing would have made it so Tractor Supply didn't need to come in for a variance?
Correct. Tractor Supply would have just been through building permits only.
So we're going to look for a recommendation for this one? And this is going to us anymore, or will it just go to City Council?
City Council.
If we're happy with this, it'll go to City Council.
Any more questions or discussion? Do we have anybody who wishes to speak on this item?
No submitted speaker cards.
Any more discussion? Open for motion otherwise?
Make a motion to adopt ZC 2404.
I will second it.
Will that work, Kayla?
Yes.
We're ready for voting.
Motion passes unanimously.
How tall is the Starbucks sign? Do we remember the Starbucks chevron?
The new one?
Because that had to go really tall because of the way the land curved, right? That-
I think they agreed on, 70 feet?
Oh, did they?
I think
Okay,
that's
so
what
it's
it
not
was.
quite
What?
85, but you couldn't see it.
Might have been 75.
Unless they went that high.
But it wasn't
Yeah.
85. Yeah.
Well, I mean, anybody along that frontage, you're gonna have, they're gonna want a sign.
They need
right?
to bring in
Along that
business.
frontage.
Once you pass it, you can't turn around.
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could get off on Montgomery if you passed it on Corridor Dam, right? Could. Oh, right, yeah.
Going north, you can't see it.
Yeah, no, they're done.
You know, I have to say too, for the traffic safety ratings, having one sign with multiple things on it versus every,
Yeah, no,
it's
it's
way
better.
safer
It's
to have it all
easier to
on
look
one.
at as a
Way
driver.
cleaner.
Much better.
Totally. Good point.
Okay, what's next?
Okay, we are out of the public hearing and we are into regular business. Item 3, Development Review Committee. Who wants to head this one up?
Whoopee.
He's
You
just,
on it?
Okay, guys, I have just a quick little, there was a very short staff report for this. It's item 3 in the,
Right here.
starting on page 37. Basically, everybody gets a turn on the DRC. We need 2 volunteers, one to be the chair and one to be the member who will then take over the chair when the chair's term is finished. Currently, Terry Smith is our chair for the DRC. Everybody who is, besides our 2 new guys, has had a rotation of the DRC. So I am at this point looking for 2 volunteers.
I'll volunteer for it, it's fine.
I am looking for
Thank you.
1 volunteer.
What about Terry? Is he done?
His term is done, but he can always re-up if he felt the need to do so.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, me and Terry.
That'd probably help.
So
show
then
them
how
what-
about,
That'd probably help show the new.
yeah, I was gonna say,
or-
Terry,
yeah,
if you would
Commissioner.
continue to be the chair, and that way you can show John how it's
Yes,
done.
please, show John.
And
John
then,
knows
and then
nothing.
John will take over and we will appoint someone else.
How
at
long
that
is the
time.
term, or the tenure, or the?
10-year.
The
10 years.
typical term is 3 months, and then 3 months as chair.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so 6 months, but in this case, because Terry is going to be the chair and Melissa had left, he will have another 3 months and then it'll be 6 months for
So
John.
have you already done 6 months already on it?
Yeah,
yeah, it seems like I did it for a year.
Goes quick.
yeah, went quick, yeah.
I mean, if you want to, I'll do it if you don't want to.
I live right a few blocks down the street here, so it's
Okay.
easy to.
He loves it. Don't take it from him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
What's
is his
that?
thing.
But he loves it. Don't take it from him.
No, I won't. I just want to
I
know
mean,
that I.
Yeah.
He did a good job, too.
Terry, you do realize that now they are going to go to city council and make it where it is a 10-year.
Oh,
Just-
okay,
Just
yeah.
saying.
So, Wes, correct me if I'm wrong, but we do need a motion and a second and a vote on that.
Sure.
How do we motion that? He
Motion
volunteered.
for John and
A volunteer.
Terry to serve on the DRC
I
as
can't make the
volunteer
motion, right?
members.
I'm,
As a chair, I can't motion either, right?
I think that in this instance you could because you're
I
not
make a
involved in the
motion to
decision at all.
accept Terry Smith and John Zilich
Thanks,
as
Terry.
participants on the DRC for the next term.
and I'll even second it.
Awesome.
Motion
There we go.
Please open voting, I guess.
On that before.
I really want to press abstain right now.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Next DRC meeting is August 8th, Thursday at 3:30 PM.
Ooh. Got a doctor's appointment.
Terry's aware of the process. John, you will be introduced to it. I will be sending out agendas for that meeting about a week before. So the beginning of the month, you'll get an agenda for the DRC.
Okay. And what time was that at again?
3:30.
3:30. That's a little earlier. Okay.
Yeah.
Do
The
we have
time
to have?
is
sorry.
flexible if members need it to be changed, so staff
I will
staff
be-
wants to end by 5, that's all.
Do we need to have an alternate in case? Do you ever have alternates in case
I
they
don't
can't
believe
make
there
it?
ever has been an alternate. However, I would be honored if you would be willing.
I'll do the alternate.
Okay.
Yeah. Got to revote on that?
No.
Thank you, Glenn.
And item 4, election of chair. Do we have are staff conducting this? Am I conducting this? Or what are you? how are we doing
Nominating
this?
Wyatt.
I do not have a staff report for this.
So I guess we do nominations.
Yeah, I nominate you.
I nominate Wyatt. if
Well,
Wyatt
thank
is
you.
okay.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you. Do we have a term?
It's generally for 1 year, and typically the term ends in January, but that's really up to the commission as to whether they want to keep you on. Damon was chair for like 17 years, and Carl was chair for something like 4 years, so one does not have to be removed in January. And then there needs to be a vice chair.
What about, I mean, does everybody's term expire in June and then start back up in July? Wouldn't it? Or is that just some,
Those are your tenancy on the planning commission, and they are staggered to end at different times.
different 2-year
Yeah.
terms, right?
Yeah. So we have 4 new commissioners right now. We have Natalie Sheard, we have Glenn Arossi, and these 2 new gentlemen. So your terms will expire before theirs do.
I was just thinking if the chair maybe expired in June or July when new commissioners come on. But January's fine if that's what it does.
I think
So-
the code does say January, but we'll double check on that.
That's fine. I would accept if everybody's fine with that, but
Thank you.
that's up to you
You're
guys.
very good
Fine.
at it.
Fine.
Very
For the,
good
for
and
the
efficient.
term, you guys could
Yep.
reevaluate it in a couple months. And then nominations for a vice, is anybody,
Do we have to have a vice?
Yeah. I nominate Natalie for the vice chair.
I will second.
I will third.
There you go.
That was quick.
Kayla, have we done that according to Hoyle?
Yep. We're all good. Motion passes unanimously.
Thanks. I don't ever remember going through that process.
I don't either.
So we are on to commissioner reports.
I have historic advisory, but is there anything else besides?
Okay, historical advisory reports.
Okay, we got the plaques. So I wanted to show you guys the plaques. So those of you who don't know, we are giving awards to historic homes that have been restored beautifully, and just, we really want to recognize all the hard work that they've done. And we've chosen 2 homes. I have the plaques now, so we're going to give, and in fact, one of the winners was Julie Miller, she has left, but 2 beautiful homes that will be honored. We will have an event at their home, we'll invite the newspaper and Action News, and we're gonna make a big deal out of it where you can tour the homes. But I do have the plaques here, and I will be making sure all of you can hopefully come. And I think the 2 winners wanted to have it on the same day. We were thinking that might be kind of cool if people toured one home, then went to the other home. So we'll work that out. Noelle's been helping us. But I did want to show you the plaques. Just have to be very careful with them.
Don't sneeze.
Yeah.
This is nice.
Isn't that nice?
Was that made locally or was that?
No, did we end up in Pennsylvania
Oh, wow.
for this?
Shipping must have been.
We kind of copied, it's a little bit similar to Sacramento's plaque when they honor homes in their historic downtown. So anyway, that's something this body does,
This is really nice.
because I know you're newer here. And so we ask the community for nominations, but also you're willing to come up with them. But it's just something this body does. And as many sponsors as we can get, that's how many of these we can have. It isn't like we only will pick 1 or 2. If we have 4 wonderful things that we want to honor, we just need the sponsors. So
How much is a sponsorship?
we had what, 500 and then 1,000, or 250, 500 and 1,000. I mean, these are about $700. So that's, and then we want to be able to have, we want to honor the sponsors at the tour at the home. so that they get recognition, and there'll be a little bit of expenses when we have the actual events at the homes. But hopefully this will be something they can put on their home, and it'll last for years.
Yeah.
The
Beautiful.
annual nominating process starts in December.
Okay?
That's what we did last year, right?
That's what we did, because we wanted to announce it at the State of the City.
State
That
of the
was our
City,
goal.
Which was
Yes.
this year in May.
Yes. So that's kind of our goal. Start the nominating process, be able to announce.
I think that's great for the community.
Yeah, I know. In fact, I was talking to somebody else in town who was remodeling their home, and I had stopped on my way to work this morning to just tell her, oh my gosh, this looks amazing. And I said to her, I'm going to nominate you for this award. She's like, oh, I would love to be honored, just to feel like somebody's paying attention to what you're doing. So anyway, thank you.
Well, thank you. Staff reports.
Okay, so first off, once again, thank you so much to our new commissioners, John and Soar. We are very glad you are here and we welcome you. And if you have any questions about anything, we are here to help you and answer any questions. So please reach out to us. I'll make sure you have all our contact information. As for reports, we are going to have DRC, so that'll be your first one next month on the 8th. We will be reviewing some apartments that are owned by AJ Beck. They'll be going back to DRC for review. And we will also be looking at a parcel map. And there is a community solar application that we've received that we're going to be reviewing as well.
Thank you. I just, when you said welcome to them, I was thinking we almost need a new commissioner packet or something would be great. Like people get here and they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, we don't follow Robert's Rules of Order. We follow somebody else, right? And I mean, the Brown Act. Not very many people are,
Brown Act.
We follow
nobody
that.
really knows about the Brown Act when they first get here.
So we do have something like that put together for council members who come on board. It's much of the same information. I'm happy to piece something together for you two gentlemen.
That would be awesome. I do have to say, I got here about half an hour early, not knowing what I was walking into. And everybody here was fantastic about explaining what we do. So this has been great.
The other thing is that the planning department has materials that are things from the local government commission and other places that describe what it's like and what your responsibilities are as a planning commissioner, and those are available to any commissioners, including the new ones, if you so desire. And periodically there is training in how to be a planning commissioner that's put on by the League of Cities, and depending on the city's budget, then you folks might like to do that as well when the opportunity comes up, so.
Well, it's a 4-year term, so plenty of time to learn, for sure.
Thank you. Do we have any other staff reports?
I have a couple of things, little updates. So the On Camino thing, we've started that process of setting that up for the city. If you remember that, it's a weird name, but this is the thing, the decision tree. So anyone can go on and take a look at, kind of puzzle out their project. It'll going through a series of clicks and prompts. It'll eventually tell them the things that they'll need to do for their specific project, whether they need a use permit, whether they need a permit at all, if there's outside agencies that need to be involved, that kind of thing. So we're scheduled to have that go live in January. Fingers crossed, everything works well. We put out an RFP for a 311. Have I talked to you about this before? So 311 is it's a customer records management system. And so anyone in the community can communicate with the city. Like if you see a pothole or graffiti, a homeless encampment, from your phone you can report it. If you do it at the site, it'll geocode it and it'll go right to the person that would be responsible for taking care of whatever that issue is. And then it'll go into a work order, and so it organizes things and it just goes right to that person. So they're pretty cool. It'll do some other things too. If for anyone, people can report not anonymously. They can report They can log in and they can report that way, but whatever they report will still be anonymous. It won't say who did this, but 7 people could all report on a pothole, and it'll show 7 people reported on it, so they can make a decision whether or not you want to be the 8th or just leave it alone. But you'll always be anonymous. So graffiti, a neighbor has a car on their front yard, or whatever you want to report, you'll remain anonymous. So that'll be a pretty cool system. There's a lot of features to that. Another thing that it'll do is it'll allow us to push out information to the community, and we will use that sparingly. We're not going to spam people, but things that people need to know, or things that the public would probably very much like to know, we'll use that tool to push out to people. We have the marketing on the 6th. We're taking a recommendation to council for a marketing company. We put out an RFP sometime back, and we've gone through the process, whittled it down. We have someone that we're going to make a recommendation to. And we're pretty excited to have them on board. We're going to have them do things like create collateral for us to give out to at trade shows, or for trying to recruit people to come here and build or set up shop or relocate their businesses here. So that's pretty specifically targeted marketing. And then we're going to do, this first year with them, we're going to have them spend a few months sort of preparing themselves, doing some immersion, getting used to understanding the community. And then they're going to launch a whole program. We're going to look at doing sort of a community pride effort, or sort of trying to do a reboot of the thinking of the community. So if you all remember the report that was put out sometime back through a series of interviews, it said that the community has a low opinion of itself, but nobody will live anyplace else.
Yep.
So it's a pretty interesting dichotomy there, like internally. So we want to capitalize on that. You wouldn't live anyplace else, and turn around this. Why do you have a low opinion of yourself? Because nobody should here. It's a great place to live, and there's a lot of opportunities. So we want to capitalize that and turn that around. Last thing is that we had the last Civic 101 session that we had was housing, and it went really, really well. John, you weren't there.
No, I apologize for that.
And that one actually went for 2 hours. It was only scheduled for an hour, but the whole room was engaged, and it was a really good. Amy did a bang up job. And the next one coming up is will be public safety. So that'll be Chief Darnell is going to do that one, and that one promises to be a good one as well. So, and that's all I have.
Thank you. We will adjourn to August 22nd, 2024 at 6 p.m.